This happened just a few months ago. I had recently moved to a small coastal town, looking for a fresh start after a rough breakup. I was a schoolteacher and eager to make new friends. So my friend Mark came to visit. We planned a long hike along the coast. I didn't think much about the weather, even when it turned stormy. As the rain began to pour harder, we spotted the old church up on the hill. It looked abandoned, with peeling paint and weeds everywhere. Still, it was a refuge from the storm. My heart raced a bit when we entered. I knew the locals avoided this place. They had told me stories about it. I always dismissed them, but I couldn't shake my unease. It felt dark inside. The musty smell hit me hard and the silence felt heavy. We tried to joke to lighten the mood, but Mark laughed loudly, mocking how the locals were scared of the church. I sensed something shifting, like the space around us was holding its breath. The storm raged outside, but Mark's laughter echoed inside those empty walls. Everything felt normal, despite the uneasy atmosphere. Then things got weird. I thought I heard something, a chant. I wasn't sure. It sounded far away, like a memory. But Mark, he stopped laughing. He looked serious, staring at a dark corner of the church. I followed his gaze and felt a chill creep up my spine. The air turned colder, and my heart raced. "Mark, are you okay?" I asked, feeling uneasy. He didn't answer. He just stared into that corner. My voice cracked as I called his name, but it felt like my words were swallowed up by the storm outside. "Look at it, Jacob," he whispered. "It feels alive." I had no idea what he meant, but the weight of his words crushed down on me. I wanted to pull him away, to laugh it off, to say we needed to get out. But I was frozen. Then suddenly he dropped to his knees. His face went pale. All I could say was, "Mark." I felt paralyzed by fear. What was happening? I didn't know if this was a prank or if something deeper was going on. I glanced over my shoulder and shadows moved near the stained glass. They flickered like they were watching us. The chanting grew louder, and a cold breath tickled the back of my neck. "Mark!" I shouted, but it came out shaky. He didn't respond. His eyes looked unfocused, like he was staring at something I couldn't see. Panic washed over me. "We need to leave," I said, but my feet felt stuck to the ground. I felt like the walls were closing in. The wind howled outside, and the chanting turned into a low growl. It felt wrong. Every instinct told me to get out of that church, but I couldn't move. Then, from somewhere deep within the shadows, a voice whispered Mark's name, soft and warped. I turned to him in horror as he opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Right then, I saw a flicker of darkness stretching from the corner. It seemed to reach for Mark. I wanted to scream, to pull him away, but I didn't know if I had the strength. Instead, I just watched, helpless as the darkness enveloped my friend and the chanting turned into laughter. Mark's laughter. But it wasn't joyful anymore. It felt like something had taken him, and I was left standing there in that empty church, alone with my fear and my shattered friendship. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short gasps. The darkness enveloping Mark seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I wanted to turn and run, but my legs felt like lead. The sound of rain hammering on the roof faded, replaced by that unsettling chant rising around me. It was almost like a cruel whispering, taunting in a language I couldn't understand. "Mark!" I cried out again, desperate. I strained my eyes to see through the darkness, but it thickened, like a wall blocking my friend from me. My mind raced with confusion. Was he messing with me? Was this some sick joke? But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That laughter, his laughter, crackled through the air, but it wasn't him. It was hollow, echoing bizarrely inside the church like it belonged to something else. My legs finally responded to my frantic mind, and I turned to bolt for the door. I couldn't just stand there and watch him disappear. As I stumbled outside, the rain drummed against my skin. I shivered, heart thumping wildly in my chest. I didn't look back, but I felt the cold weight of that darkness lurking behind me. It wasn't just a storm. It was something more. I ran down the hill to my car, my fingers fumbling to unlock the door. The laughter echoed in my mind, relentless. I finally managed to dive inside and slam the door shut. For a moment, I just sat in the driver's seat, drenched and trembling, staring at the church looming above me. What was happening to Mark? Was he okay? I had to help him, but how? I could almost hear the shadows calling to me, a siren song promising understanding. But something deep in my gut told me the church wasn't the place to find answers. As I fumbled for my phone, I glanced back at the church and caught a glimpse of a figure moving just inside the entrance. My stomach churned. It was too dark to see clearly, but I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. I punched in Mark's number, hands shaking. No signal. I dropped the phone in frustration. My heart raced as I recalled the stories the locals told me about souls lost, spirits trapped. I needed to find help. I knew I had to figure out what was going on. I took a deep breath, grabbed the gear shift, and forced myself to drive away, the tires crunching over gravel. I headed toward the small town nearby, hoping I could find someone who knew more about the church. The fear still clawed at me, but that quiet determination began to bloom. I couldn't lose Mark. I wouldn't let whatever happened to him take me too. As I reached the edge of town, something flashed across the rear-view mirror. A figure darted into the shadows. My heart sank. It couldn't be. Was Mark following me? And then I heard it. The laughter. The same hollow mockery. It sent chills down my spine. I hit the gas and raced into town, the sense of urgency almost overwhelming. That laugh lingered in the air, wrapping around me like a shroud. I needed answers. I had to uncover the truth. The darkness wasn't satisfied, and with every passing moment I feared what it would demand next. I reached the small diner at the end of Main Street, tires screeching against the pavement as I pulled in. The neon sign flickered, casting eerie shadows over the parking lot. I jumped out, leaving the car door open. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, who could help me make sense of the chaos. Walking in, the scent of stale coffee and greasy food filled the air. A few locals looked up, their faces drawn with tiredness. I spotted an older man at the counter, his thick gray beard contrasting sharply with his dark eyes. He was muttering to himself, and I couldn't help but feel drawn to him. I approached cautiously. "Excuse me, sir, do you know anything about the old church on the hill?" He looked up, the shadow of concern washing over his features. "That place? You shouldn't be around there after dark." His voice trembled slightly. "I was just there," I said, my throat dry. "My friend, he was inside, and then there was this darkness and laughter. I think something's wrong." The man's eyes widened, and he leaned closer. "Listen, boy, the stories aren't just stories. People have gone missing in that church. It's said to be cursed, filled with trapped souls." Caught off guard, I felt a cold rush creep inside me. "Trapped souls?" I echoed, searching for some sign that he was joking. "Things aren't what they seem, particularly at night," he warned. "It was built on ground where something happened long ago. You should leave town for your own good." "But I can't just leave him," I pressed, my voice rising. "I need to bring my friend back." The man shook his head. "You don't understand. There are things that won't let him go. Once that darkness sees you, it's not just your friend it wants." Suddenly, a hush fell over the diner and my skin prickled. The laughter, the hollow sound that haunted me, echoed from outside. It was getting closer. The locals stiffened, turning toward the windows nervously. I felt every eye in the room land on me, their gazes filled with fear. "Get out," the man shouted, pointing to the door. "Run!" I didn't need to be told twice. I dashed back outside, my heart pounding in my chest. The rain had stopped, and a thick, unnatural fog clung to the ground like fingers reaching up. Shadows twisted and curled in the corners of my vision, beckoning me to the church once more. As I reached my car, I hesitated. There was something in the air. The laughter redoubled, spinning up my spine. I felt numb, torn between the instinct to flee and the need to save Mark. That sense of urgency roared back. I couldn't wait any longer. I slammed the door shut, pulled the gear shift, and spun the tires. I was going back, whether the darkness wanted me or not. Just as I was about to turn onto the road leading back to the church, I caught sight of something glimmering through the fog ahead, light, flickering. My breath hitched. That wasn't just any light, it was coming from the church itself. And then I knew. I had to go back. But as I turned the corner, I felt something behind me, lurking, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was no longer just Mark's laughter I heard. It was a chorus of lost voices, wanting, calling me into the dark. The road twisted like a serpent under the fog, and my headlights fought against the darkness. The church loomed ahead, tall and imposing, its silhouette jagged against the night sky. I could see the light flickering sporadically, almost taunting me. It wasn't just a beacon, it felt like a warning. I parked the car and hesitated before stepping out. Cold air bit into my skin, but I barely felt it. My focus narrowed to the church and what I might find inside. Steeling myself, I pulled my jacket tighter and made my way inside. The door creaked ominously as I pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit interior. Dust hung in the air, illuminated by the bouncing light. As I stepped over the threshold, I was met with that same feeling of being watched. The laughter faded, but a chilling silence enveloped me, heavier than before. In the center of the room, something caught my eye, a figure kneeling. I took a cautious step forward. "Mark," I called out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't move. Instead, the laughter started again, echoing through the stone walls, sending a shiver down my spine. It was as if the building itself was alive, vibrating with a dark energy I couldn't comprehend. Then I noticed a series of paintings lining the walls. Each depicted scenes of worship and anguish, but one painting stood out. It showed a gathering of people, their faces twisted in terror, staring towards a figure with glowing eyes. My pulse quickened as I recalled the old man's warning. The church had a dark history. "Mark!" I shouted again, but my voice was swallowed by the hollow space. Panic flooded my chest. If that laugh belonged to him, he was in serious trouble. I moved deeper into the church. The flickering light led me to a small altar at the back, draped in gossamer cloth. The laughter now sounded urgent, pulling me closer. As I neared, I saw Mark's belongings, his backpack and jacket crumpled on the floor. "Mark!" I yelled, desperation clawing at me. Just then the laughter morphed. It took on a new tone, one filled with malice. I felt the air grow colder and shadows curled at the edges of my vision. That's when I saw it. A dark shape moved to my right, slipping between the rows of pews like a predator stalking its prey. My heart raced. This wasn't just the darkness I'd felt before. Something was here with me. Something that wanted more than just to play tricks. I turned, ready to confront whatever it was, but nothing stood there. Just the empty church whispering around me. I felt trapped, cornered, like the darkness was pressing in from every angle. I had to find Mark. I had to get him out. As I looked back at the altar, I noticed the light flicker again, brighter this time. There was something glowing beneath the cloth. Unable to resist the pull, I reached forward, the laughter now a cacophony in my ears, drowning out reason. That's when everything went black. I came to, gasping in the dark. My body ached. as if I had fallen from a great height. I blinked slowly, trying to orient myself. The soft glow returned, framing the altar, but it was distant now. I wasn't where I had been. Panic twisted my stomach. I pushed myself up, feeling the cold stone floor beneath my palms. "Mark?" The word came out hoarse, a whisper that didn't break the silence. Around me the shadows seemed to react, shifting as if something breathed in the corners. The flickering light from the altar cast hazy shapes on the walls. I picked myself up, wobbling slightly on unsteady legs. I stumbled toward the glow, each uncertain step ringing in my ears. The laughter had died down, replaced by a peculiar anticipation. As I reached the altar, I could see the cloth had been pulled aside, revealing a small box with strange markings carved into its surface. It seemed to pulse with a light of its own, tempting me with its mystery. "What is this?" I muttered, reaching for the box. Just as my fingers brushed its surface, a rush of cold wind swept through the church. The doors slammed shut, rattling the heavy wood so violently I jumped back. "Mark!" I shouted again, panic creeping back in. My heart raced as silence swallowed my voice. From the darkness I heard a low whisper, too faint to comprehend. It floated through the air around me like smoke, taunting and elusive. I squinted into the shadows, feeling their weight pressing in. There had to be a way out. I couldn't stay here. The whispers intensified, wrapping around me like vines. I took a step back, trying to shake them off. Suddenly a figure emerged from the gloom, though it wasn't Mark. It was the same figure from the painting, their eyes glowing fiercely, surveying me with an unsettling calm. Frozen, I felt dread clawing at my chest. The laughter suddenly erupted again, a cruel mirror to the malicious grin that appeared on the figure's face. It stepped closer, and I felt the air constrict around me. "Why do you come here?" the figure hissed, voice like scraping metal. "This is not your place." I stumbled back, eyes darting around for an escape. The shadows twisted with the figure's movements, forming fingers that reached for me. "Where is Mark?" I demanded, hoping to buy myself time. The figure chuckled, the sound echoing unnaturally in the cavernous space. "He's here, seeking what he should not. You, like him, are drawn to the darkness." Then, before I could react, the figure lunged at me. My instincts kicked in and I turned to run, but the altar loomed like a barrier, blocking my path. I could hear the whispers growing louder, drowning me in their urgency. I dove to the side, dodging the figure as it rushed past. Adrenaline surged, pushing me forward. I wasn't just running from the figure, I was running for Mark. He had to be here somewhere. I could feel the weight of the darkness thickening with each second. I dashed toward the door the way I came in, hoping against hope that it had somehow opened. As I reached for the handle, I felt the cold grip of foreboding hold me back. Through the chaos, I realized a terrible truth. The church wanted me to stay. It wanted us both. The door didn't budge, but something else shifted behind me. I turned, desperate to see what was coming. I spun around, my breath hitching in my throat. The darkness had taken on a life of its own, and I could feel it moving, swirling in a way that seemed almost purposeful. My heart pounded, drowning out the whispers that echoed through the church. Then, just beyond the altar, I caught sight of a flicker of movement. A shadow detached itself from the wall, revealing another figure. This one was smaller, hunched, moving with a shuffling step. I squinted, praying it was Mark, but my hope quickly vanished as the figure stepped into the light. It was a child, a little girl, perhaps no older than 6. Her eyes were wide and dreadfully empty, and she wore a tattered dress that fluttered around her like shadows clinging to her skin. "Help me," she whispered, her voice fragile and broken yet strangely melodic. The sound sent a cold shiver down my spine. "Where is Mark?" I gasped, fear twisting inside me again. Surely this wasn't what I thought it was. "What happened to him?" The girl only stared, her eyes boring into mine like deep wells devoid of light. "He's lost," she replied solemnly. the words heavy with anguish. He made a choice. Choice? I echoed, struggling to comprehend. The air turned thick, suffocating, and I felt it close in around me. The figure behind me moved again, its presence drawing me backward. The laughter surged, vibrating the walls, an unsettling background to the girl's haunting gaze. She pointed toward the altar, where the box still sat, its glow pulsing in rhythm to my racing heart. "He tried to take what isn't his," she said, the unearthly calm of her voice chilling me to the bone. "The darkness does not give. It only takes." I wanted to shout, to scream for Mark, but the words got stuck in my throat. The girl's expression twisted into a frown, and I noticed her fingers twitching as if she longed to reach out but couldn't. "Get away from there," I yelled suddenly, an instinctive reaction to the foreboding urge wrapping around me. But the figure lunged forward again, and I had no time to think. I turned, charging towards the altar, desperate not to let whatever was lurking behind me catch me off guard a second time. My mind raced with scattered thoughts. Could I close my eyes and grab the box? Would it help me find Mark, or was it a trap meant to ensnare us both? I stopped, hesitating for just a second, trying to decide my next move. That's when I saw it, a faint outline behind the altar, a hidden door partially ajar, shadowed by the flickering flame. It whispered promises of escape. "Mark!" I shouted once more, my voice pushing against the barrier of whispers. "I'm coming for you!" The figure was close, so close I could feel its icy breath. I had to act now. I dashed toward the hidden door, hoping against hope it led me to Mark. But as I reached for the handle, I felt the darkness surge, and my pulse quickened with a new fear. Suddenly, everything went dark. I stumbled forward, disoriented in the pitch black. My heart raced, pounding against my ribs. I could hardly breathe. I stretched out my hands, searching for something, anything, to ground me. The wooden floor creaked beneath my feet, echoing louder than my own breath. "Mark!" I called out, my voice sounding distant and swallowed by the dark. Panic began to claw at me. Alone. I was alone in the darkness. But then I heard it. A faint rustling, like fabric being dragged across the floor. I turned my head, straining to listen. It came again, closer this time. I took a tentative step forward, my outstretched fingers brushing against cold stone. "Is anyone there?" I shouted, but I didn't want to believe the answer would come back. A whisper, soft and slithering, snaked through the air. "Help him." It was the girl's voice. But where was she? "Help who?" I demanded, growing frustrated. "Where's Mark?" I braced myself against the altar, a lifeline in the dark. The box loomed nearby, silently radiating that eerie light. It beckoned to me, swirling like a mirage. I could feel its energy pulsing, urging me to draw closer. To my horror, the darkness shifted, coiling like a serpent. I caught a glimpse of movement. A shadow split from the blackness and rushed toward me. I couldn't tell what it was, but I didn't want to find out. With a burst of adrenaline, I darted away from the altar. I had to find a way out, to escape this nightmare. But the atmosphere was thick, sluggish, dragging me back as I sprinted toward the hidden door. Before I could reach it, the air crackled. The whispers grew louder, swelling into a chaotic cacophony of voices. "He shouldn't have taken it," one voice lamented. "He's not strong enough," another echoed. A chill ran down my spine. I stopped at the door, trembling and hesitating as a wave of dread washed over me. The whispers wrapped around my mind like vines, squeezing tighter. He made a choice. He's lost. The girl's voice floated through the turmoil, clear and haunting. Gripping the handle with both hands, I pulled it open. A sliver of light pierced the darkness, illuminating a narrow staircase descending into a void. My instincts screamed to turn back, but I couldn't abandon Mark. I had to go deeper. I stepped carefully onto the first step. Each shift of weight echoed ominously in the silence. I could feel the darkness behind me, creeping closer, trying to pull me away. As I descended, the air turned colder, and the whispers faded, replaced by a low rumble, like thunder vibrating through the walls. My heart raced even faster. I paused, heart pounding. What waited for me at the bottom? I needed to know. I took another step. Then there was a sudden crash, and the door slammed shut above me, plunging me into darkness. My breath caught. I was trapped. The noise grew again, echoing around me, drenched in urgency. I wasn't alone anymore. I felt the weight of eyes watching from the shadows. I turned, but all I could see was inky black. I felt my pulse quicken. If I didn't find Mark soon. Then the whispers began again, sharper this time, and a cold chill settled in my bones. Help him, before it's too late. But who should I help? And at what cost? I forced myself to breathe, to think. The darkness felt alive, swirling around me like a thick fog. Mark, I whispered, hoping for a reply, but only silence greeted me. My gut twisted with dread. I shuffled slowly, straining to hear anything beyond the pounding in my ears. My foot bumped against something hard. I bent down, fumbling to discover its shape. It was a small, cold metal object. I picked it up, recognizing it as a key. Relief washed over me for a moment. I might have a way out. But then, a low growl echoed in the distance, deep and unsettling. The sound sent a jolt of fear through me. I dropped the key as I stumbled back, my eyes searching desperately for the source of the noise. "Who's there?" I called again. My voice was shaky, revealing my fear. Silence. I straightened up, pushing down my panic. I remembered the girl's voice, urging me to help. I needed to keep moving. I took a deep breath and pressed farther into the dark, hoping to find Mark or something that could lead me to him. I walked cautiously, the texture of the floor shifting from wood to something cold and flat, like tile. The air thickened, and I could feel it pressing against me from all directions. Every step felt heavier. As I reached the end of the corridor, a faint light flickered ahead. I rushed toward it. My heart thundered again, but this time with a spark of hope. I needed to see if Mark was there. Just as I approached, the light dimmed momentarily, casting long shadows that seemed to dance along the walls. In that flicker, I saw it. Him, a figure slumped on the floor, my breath caught in my throat. It was Mark. "Mark!" I shouted, running towards him. The moment I reached him, I knelt by his side. His eyes were closed, his face pale and ghostly in the flickering light. I shook him gently. "Mark, wake up." He stirred slightly, his eyelids twitching. "What? Where?" He mumbled, his voice barely audible. That was when I noticed the glint of something metal clutched tightly in his hand. Another key? "Mark!" My voice cracked with urgency. "You need to wake up. We have to go." Suddenly what felt like a violent wind swept through the room, extinguishing the light entirely. I was plunged back into impenetrable darkness. The whispers were back, swirling around us in a frenzy. He made a choice. Now he must face the consequence. I felt Mark's body jerk beneath my touch, as if something unseen had struck him. "No!" I shouted, panic rising within me. I couldn't lose him, not now. Desperate, I fumbled for the nearest wall, trying to find something, anything, to pull us back together, to hold on. That's when I saw it. A faint outline, a door, cracked open on the far side of the room. "Mark, we have to move," I urged, the urgency burning through me. I didn't know what was coming, but I could feel it. A presence manifesting in the darkness, drawn to us. With a burst of determination, I hoisted Mark up as best as I could. He was barely responsive, but I didn't have the luxury of time. I pulled him toward the door, my heart racing. What awaited us beyond? And would we make it out before whatever was hunting us caught up? As I dragged Mark toward the door, I could hear the whispers intensify, a chaotic mixture of voices that merged into a cacophony. I pushed the door open and a chill swept over me. The air felt thick and stifling, as if the room beyond had been holding its breath. I stumbled inside, still carrying Mark. The dim light from the hallway faded away, leaving us in another suffocating darkness. My heart raced, but I couldn't stop. I laid him down on a cold surface, possibly an altar, and searched for any sign of what was around us. Suddenly I noticed shadows flitting along the walls. They were unmistakable forms, dancing and curling as if they were alive. Panic surged through me. "Mark, can you hear me? We're in a church." I was grasping for anything to bring him back. Mark stirred slightly but didn't open his eyes. The whispers morphed into a single chilling voice that reverberated through the space. "You shouldn't have come here." "Who are you?" I cried, standing defensively in front of Mark. My spine tingled and fear clawed at my throat. "What do you want?" The shadows swirled closer, and I could make out faint shapes of people, their faces obscured, their mouths moving in silent screams. A wave of terror crashed over me. They couldn't be real, could they? The last thing I needed was something supernatural on top of everything else. But then the ground beneath me trembled and I glanced down. The floor began to pulse as if alive, resonating with the sinister energy building around me. "You need to leave," the voice urged again, this time softer, yet no less terrifying. "I'm not leaving him," I shouted without thinking. I had to help Mark. There was no question about it. I glanced back at my friend, watching him struggle to awaken, and a fierce protectiveness surged within me. I noticed a small glimmer coming from Mark's hand. The key. I remembered the second key he was clutching. I rushed back to him, prying his fingers open. The moment I held the key, a jolt of energy shot through me. My heart raced and I understood it was a key to something greater than just a door. The shadows reacted, seeming to recoil, the whispers growing frantic and urgent. "Don't! You mustn't unlock what is bound." Ignoring them, I took a deep breath and turned back toward the altar, searching for any lock. My eyes roamed over the faded carvings and the remnants of a once grand sanctuary. There had to be something. The voice echoed in my mind. Choices made must be paid in full. I could hear my pulse in my ears, drowning out the whispers. Then, just ahead, I saw it. A glint of metal that matched Mark's key. A heavy door set deep into the wall, almost hidden in the shadows. My hands shook as I approached the door. I glanced back at Mark, whose struggles were becoming more erratic. Time was running out. I had to make a choice. Then, before I could place the key in the lock, I heard a heavy footfall echo behind me. I turned, dread clawing at my chest. Someone, or something, was closing in. "Mark!" I shouted, the urgency overriding my fear. I had to know if he was with me. I didn't look back. I slid the key into the lock just as the presence loomed closer, darkness reaching for us. The door creaked open, revealing a blinding light. Would it be salvation, or would I find something worse waiting inside? As the door swung open, I was met with a blinding light that momentarily encapsulated everything in white. I barely had time to register the warmth that surged through me before the shadows behind me lunged, a dark mass trying to reclaim what was theirs. "Mark!" I shouted again, but I could barely hear my own voice over the ominous whooshing of the darkness swirling around us. I reached out, feeling the heat of the light beckoning me forward with an urgency that felt almost alive. Without thinking, I grabbed Mark and pulled him toward the blinding glow. The shadows cried out, their voices mingling into a cacophony that felt both desperate and furious. I pushed us both through the threshold, leaving the dark remnants of the church behind. As we stepped into the light, a wave of quiet washed over me. I blinked, slowly regaining my senses. We were outside beneath a pale morning sun, the salty breeze brushing against my wet skin. The old church stood behind us, silent and ominous against the backdrop of blue skies. I turned to Mark, who lay next to me on the grass, blinking up at the sky. "Mark, are you okay?" I placed my hands on his shoulders, shaking him gently. "Jacob?" His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't used it in days. "What happened?" He scrambled up, looking around as if attempting to piece together reality. "I thought I'd lost you," I breathed, tears brimming in my eyes. Relief coursed through me. "What was that place?" His expression shifted from confusion to concern. "I remember the laughter and then darkness." A shiver skittered down my spine as I recalled the weight of the shadows, twisted faces pressing in. Yet now, it all felt like a dream. "It's over," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I felt that ancient pull tethering me to the church. The flickering light and laughter still echoed in my mind, mingling with fleeting memories of the faces I hadn't time to fully see. We got to our feet and moved away from the church, but I dared a glance back. The weathered building stood there, unyielding, and I realized then that it didn't really belong to this world. Something about it loomed larger than just bricks and mortar. It thrummed with pasts unaccounted for, lives swallowed by its darkness. "Let's get out of here," Mark said softly, grounding me back in the moment. We turned and began to walk away, heading toward the coastal path. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks filled the air, washing over the remnants of doubt that still lingered in my mind. I glanced at him, grateful that he was here. But the unease didn't fully dissipate. "Do you think it will come for us?" Mark asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, pushing the back of my mind. It had almost taken him once. The darkness had been close, more aware than I had ever imagined. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we will face it together." As we walked, the weight of unanswered questions hung in the air. How many souls had been trapped inside? What had truly happened in that church? And what would have transpired if I hadn't turned back in time? The answers felt just out of reach, swirling like fog just beyond the coastline. We reached the edge of the rocky cliffs, standing above the crashing surf, and I let the salty air wash over me. There was freedom in our escape, but the shadows behind us still tugged at my thoughts. I glanced back toward the church once more. For one fleeting moment, I thought I saw a figure in the doorway, watching from the gloom. But when I blinked, it was gone. I shook my head. "Let's go home," I said, leading Mark away from the church. A fresh start awaited us, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever waited within those walls cared not about our escape. I still think about that church sometimes. I wonder if those things still linger in the shadowy corners, craving what was lost. Maybe one day I'll have the courage to face it again. But for now, staying away feels like the only choice I can make.